Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of your favorite show on the interwebs, and that is Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, after a loss, we just seem to have like double the questions, so we have to just jump right into them because we gotta go because we only have 45 minutes or so to do this show. So let's jump right in. Our first question is from Mousetown, who asks, and I like this question, Mike. A lot of people are gonna like this one. Are you still defending Enos and his offense? It took a monster play from KJ to kickstart things late in the game, but come on, this stuff doesn't work.
Maybe your memory is better than mine is. I don't remember defending it so much as the one thing I said was, and this, you get further into the season, Sam Pitman made the statement last week that no offense is going to work well if you can't run the ball, or at least not what they're trying to do. And I agreed with him on that. So I was willing to admit that, yes, if they had a better running game, this offense would work better. I still don't like it. I still don't feel like it benefits KJ. It doesn't fit what he does. But they are adjusting to that every week, slowly but surely. You keep asking yourself, why didn't they do that earlier? But, DJ Williams gives me something to think about every week on our game day show because he does this breakdown. It's really like film study. Like when I was in high school, we'd come in on Sunday and they'd show film. Didn't have video back then. They'd show film. Got a projector. Coach has got a button back and forth. And they'd show film of what the game you just played, then they'd show the opponent, and they'd break it down and show things. Well, this is sort of like that, only he picks out selected plays with a lot of the arrows and does the X's and O's stuff. And one of the things that he got into this week, which I found fascinating, was the strange blocking schemes with this offense. And one in particular stuck out to me because you have a counter play where Dominion takes the ball on the left, looks like he's going left. No, he takes it headed right, and then cuts back to his left. So you got an offensive tackle here, and here's a linebacker to his left. And he's supposed to then, the guy takes off to follow the flow. He's got to go at an angle and try to cut him off. I don't think it's a good blocking scheme to have a big 315-pound offensive tackle trying to outrun a linebacker to the point of attack, and he missed the block. The guy just went right through and made the tackle. And there were other examples of this. So again, I don't like this offense, but I do acknowledge that in the last 2 weeks they've sort of found some things on in each game, a couple of possessions where it worked. And you just got to hope that now that they've got that stretch behind them, and now they've had a chance to adjust to some of these things, that maybe they'll do some things a little bit differently than what they've been doing.
That's the hope.
That's
the hope.
Because here's the thing I don't understand. You go 5 and out on 5 straight, 3 and out, 5 straight times from the middle of the first quarter all the way to the end of toward the end of the third quarter. That's 5 straight possessions where you went 3 and out. You know what that does to a defense? It's horrible. That's when they gave up those points, just during that stretch. No wonder they got tired. But you do that, and then all of a sudden at the end of the third quarter, you go on a 10-play, 77-yard drive, get the ball back, go on a 9-play, 69-yard drive. Both of them are touchdowns, and you're going, what's different? Well, one of the different things was that KJ made a couple of big plays, and that kind of inspired everybody. But the play calling was different. Remember we talking about, I think it was the Ole Miss game where they actually threw a red zone pass to Dominion.
It was.
He went down and out. Instead of the typical screen pass, which doesn't work, he went down and then over into the little flat area behind the goalpost, behind the flag, the pylon, and he caught the pass, and it was a touchdown. So they ran that same play this time only from 14 yards out. And then we're sitting over there at that monitor, and I think there was a brief pause. Maybe somebody was hurt. I don't know what, but you could tell Arkansas was going to go for 2. And I told you, Courtney, they're going to try to run this in, and it's going to fail. Courtney, they're going to try to run this in, and it failed.
I mean, I think you got up when it happened. You were like, I can't watch this because I know it's going to fail.
And then they threw that little slant into Armstrong, and I'm going, where has this play been? What? So if they start doing this stuff, and then there's that whole tempo thing, which, they acknowledge today that they're starting to run it a little bit better. And Pitman himself in the press conference on Monday said that he thought that offensive linemen block better when they're not standing around for 30 seconds before a play starts. So he's advocating for tempo.
Yes.
But again, you're asking yourself, who runs this football team? You get this far into the season before you start saying, hey, it might be a good idea if we run some tempo.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head with why people are annoyed. And I think to go back to your point, Mike, of when something works, why not try it again? When something works and you can do it, why not do it again? It's the same thing. Remember when I sat there in front of the TV, it was 4th and 1, and I go, tush push, it's time to bring it out again. It worked last time, we're doing it again. Dan, I know you can call it again. And what did they do? They didn't do that. they burned a timeout instead and decided instead they were going to punt it. So,
right.
I mean, it's one of those things where you're going, it worked. Why not call it? Even the announcers are going, oh, time to bring out the tush push. The announcers are calling what you should do. And
Strange.
I know.
Hard to figure out.
Oh, very hard to figure out, but we have to keep moving on because you guys have a lot more questions. And the next question, I believe it is about DJ's breakdown. You keep referencing Hog Redneck Ask. You keep referencing DJ's breakdown. What is it and where can I watch it? And I'm glad you put this question in the show, Mike, because I told you last week, Mike, we need to get a question on this because everybody keeps emailing me and asking. So
the problem is we can't put it on the internet. We can't stream it because of SEC rules. So the only way you can watch it is to watch it when we do the show from 10 to 11 every Saturday morning. And it's usually about 10 after 10, somewhere in there, he does his breakdown. And again, what he's doing is breaking down certain plays, and then he asks me what I think, and it's very good. But you're going to have the discipline if you want to see it, to watch it when it happens.
Yep.
Not assume that we can run it later or put a little clip of it on the internet because the SEC will not allow us to do that.
Yeah, so if you have a problem with that, just go email the SEC and say, please let Pig Trail Nation post highlights of games because that's how we can post all of those things for you. We have a lot of great content on our shows, Mike, that we're not allowed to post because of that silly rule.
Because of that rule.
Exactly. So we get very annoyed. Also, Mike, I want to mention, a lot of people were like, hey, but I'm not in the state of Arkansas. Can I still watch it? You can. We do streaming of that show.
Streaming of it live.
We do streaming of it, so you can watch it from literally anywhere in the United States. So knwa.com. Just go on over to that streaming tab. Click that. You can see it at 10 a.m. every Saturday morning. So definitely watch that. I definitely recommend it. We have a lot of good content in that show. Pat Boat says, geez, does A.J. Green got to go 5 for 200 to get a real opportunity? Seriously, who is pulling him out and what is the issue, Mike?
Well, Sam Pitman got asked that question today.
He did?
Jacob asked him.
Thank you, Jacob.
Basically, he said some stuff about they just felt like DeBinion was a better inside runner, but he ended up acknowledging that this week against Mississippi State, they're going to split reps. So we'll see because we got a million questions about that.
Absolutely. And I think he said he was very confident in the fact of having A.J. Green and Rashad DeBinion split reps and get the game going.
In my opinion,
Rocket
both
Sanders'
of them
absence.
right now are better than Rocket because something was wrong with Rocket all along. I mean, he wasn't the same when he was after he got hurt. He was not the same. And, he's got to figure out what's wrong with that knee. But I think they're better off anyway. Trying to play Rocket with some sort of issue there wasn't working.
Yeah, you hope that he gets better, though, because that's just such a tough thing to go through. We saw it with Nick Smith Jr. in basketball season. If you aren't 100% healthy, it can affect how you play, what you can do in a game, and that could hurt his NFL draft stock as well. So
absolutely.
Anyways, Hot Dogger says, so impressed with our defense. They just keep getting better. Travis Williams has put it all together for the Hogs. He certainly has, right, Mike?
Yeah, you can't argue with that. And the key is they keep getting better. I made the point earlier talking to somebody that if this defense gets any better, Arkansas's offense might be irrelevant. You just score 6 points and you might win the game.
More pick sixes, please.
Yeah, just kick 3 field goals and you win the game because they do get better and better and better. So hats off to him and what they're doing. And again, you just wish that they had been further along earlier, because they've had to adjust to something new too. It didn't just happen.
Yeah.
And you just sort of wish they'd been further along, because I don't think right now BYU could come close to scoring in the 30s on them.
No.
So
I think you're right.
They've really improved.
They absolutely have. Been watching BYU against TCU this past weekend. I was going, that's not the same BYU that played Arkansas, or is it? And Arkansas just did not play to their abilities that day. And you also have to give them credit, because they played like that against Alabama, who is having, I'm going to say this in quotes, down year, right? They're still number 11 in the nation.
Down year, they're right there at top 10, and they're leading the SEC West.
Down year, but they played that way even with down some key players. Chris Paul wasn't playing in that matchup. Jalen Braxton wasn't playing in that matchup. Cam Ball wasn't playing in that matchup. Those are 3 starters for them that weren't playing in that game. I think that's really impressive that they can even plug those holes. They have enough depth there. It's really, really awesome to see. Chief Mack wants to know, why are the receivers unable to get separation? What is the receiver core lacking? Couldn't some motion assist? Cornelius and Morgan were not physical specimens, but they thrived in Enos' scheme.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Again, what we were initially kind of told, I don't remember exactly, this was kind of floating around at the time, but early in the season, we were told, well, these guys, it turns out they're not as fast as we thought, blah, blah, blah. Well, Armstrong, there's nothing wrong with his speed.
Yeah.
And I do think that Tesla, while he's not a speed burner, he can still catch the ball. He's got great leaping ability, great hands. I just think, again, they've got to re-examine the routes they're having him run. I think they need some plays that put him in a better position. They got to figure out ways to get him more open.
Yeah.
And right now what he's doing is he's running through a crowd most of the time right after the snap, and nobody's going to get separation in that situation. So I don't think that there's a real problem with these receivers. We're back to Enos' offense. I think with a better offense, they would be looking better. Do
you think, Mike, if they're trying to get speed, right? We know Andrew Armstrong has speed. We know Tesla also. I believe he can get up there in speed too.
Sure.
But Isaiah Satenia, isn't that a perfect opportunity? You smile at me. Isn't that a perfect opportunity?
It's one of those things where now look, he came in, caught a touchdown pass, or was it a 2-point? He caught a touchdown pass.
Yeah,
caught a touchdown pass in the red zone.
Yeah.
Now let's see what happens this week. Does he vanish? Because Ty Washington had and then he had that one catch early in the game, and then he vanished.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I like what Sam Pitman said after the game. We've got to get him more involved in that slot position. We have to get him more involved. So I hope that happens.
But he said we were going to move the pocket last week, and they didn't. So
you're right, Mike. You're right. So is it just a bunch of baloney?
Who is running the show here? If you're the head coach and you say in a press conference, we got to move the pocket more, and then the only time I saw the pocket move was when KJ decided to do it on his own when he scrambled. It didn't look like to me they did it intentionally at all. So if you say we've got to find a way to get Tesla, or we've got to find a way to get Satenia in positions more to catch the ball and have an impact more, are you going to do it, or does that just go away?
That's the question I would like to know. Maybe we need to get Dan Enos back again. We can't talk to offensive coordinators throughout the season, but man, I'd love to have him do an Ask Dan segment with us. Okay, moving on. Jerry Lynn Noble, and Mike, you know this. This cracked me up before the show, so I'm going to read this and try not to laugh. Not sure they can beat Vandy. Vandy has at least as much talent. That's what Jerry Lynn Noble said on Twitter or X.
Yeah, and this is an overreaction. He's clearly mad, and people say that, and they probably don't really mean it. All you got to do, if it's a serious question, is ask yourself, could Vanderbilt play the schedule Arkansas's just played and play the games that close? And the answer is they wouldn't.
No.
They might do. Vanderbilt's had some games that were closer than you think they might have been.
They scored some touchdowns on Georgia this past week.
That's right, but they haven't had to do that 4 weeks in a row, and that's what Arkansas did. Here's the thing. There are Nick Saban said this. Saban doesn't say things for no reason, and he's the best coach that's ever been on the college level. The guy is super smart. And what did he say to his own fans after that game? He said, some of y'all have no idea of the team we just played.
Yep.
You don't understand that they're good. There was an Arkansas fan that posted on Twitter, he was at the game, and he said he was walking out of the stadium and he was behind 2 Alabama fans, and one of them said, that's a 2-5 football team. I can't believe that. But they weren't aware of the schedule Arkansas's played. So again, you look at who they've played. The top 4 if you look at the standings right now, Arkansas is dead last in the SEC with Vanderbilt, 0-4. That's 14 teams. They're right there at the bottom. Forget the West and East. They're right there at the bottom, 0-4. There are all these teams ahead of them, including teams they're about to play. Mississippi State's just 0-3. Yeah. Auburn, 0-3, I think. Yeah. So you might think, yeah, they're the worst team. Yeah, they're right there with Vandy. That's what he seems to think. The worst team, and Vandy's probably better. None of those teams have played those other 4 teams that are up there at the top. Mm-mm. It's just the way the schedule worked out. And I guess I can be proven wrong. Next week I may be sitting here going, yeah, I looked really stupid when I said that. But I think the schedule's going to get easier. Yeah. It just almost has to, because you're playing teams now that are down at the bottom instead of the top.
Yeah. And there is something to be said about home field advantage and having those fans in Razorback Stadium behind you. I mean, I was at that LSU game. I hardly saw red there. I hardly saw it. I mean, it was a crazy place to play. And I know Jacob and Evan have been to those other games. They say the same things. There's something to be said about being back home and playing in your home stadium. Space Hog says, the past few years, the recruiting services have said that the Hogs have risen in the recruiting rankings slowly but surely. And yet we have non-D1 wide receivers and the O-line is just awful. Were the rankings wrong?
I don't think the rankings are wrong. These recruiting gurus, when they give guys stars, the star system, sometimes they can be off. You know, we've all seen an example of a 5-star that didn't turn out to be a 5-star. All right, if you're going to tell me that Armstrong, who was it's not D2, it's FCS school, he was at an FCS school. If he's not a Power 5 difference maker, come on, give me a break. They knew what they were doing when they recruited him, so that's not a mistake. I don't think Tesla was a mistake. I think the mistake is how they're using him. The offensive line, I cannot explain that. I don't think the problem is that they were overrated when they recruited him. Something's gone wrong there. And I'm not going to attempt to explain it, because if Sam Pitman can't figure it out, and clearly he can't because the blocking isn't getting a lot better, then I don't know that I can explain it. But I don't think it's because they recruited some overrated offensive linemen. I do think that at the end of this year, they are going to go all out in the portal trying to find offensive linemen. Now, that's going to be more difficult because it's harder to get those guys out of the portal. Because if you've got a good old lineman, you don't want to give him up. He's probably starting somewhere else.
Yeah, and I talked about this with you before the show started as well. He's talking about non-D1 wide receivers in the O-line, and there's quite a few of those guys that if you're talking about Armstrong and Tesla and whoever else they have, and Joshua Braun on the O-line, he's a transfer. The transfer rankings are separate than the recruiting rankings. Right. Recruiting is talking about a class, right? So your freshman class, the class of 2025, the class of 2026, that's your recruiting rankings, your recruiting class. That's different than your transfer rankings. I think 24/7 does a transfer rankings as well, where you can go and see how Arkansas did in the portal and where that class ranks.
And they only brought in one offensive lineman out of the portal, and I believe he's starting, right?
Yeah, Joshua Braun, right? Yeah. So I mean, that's also a point to make there in that question, is that have the transfer portal rankings gone up? Have they? Because I have to go look. I would have to go see if that's something that they did.
That's to me, that's not what the issue is.
No,
here.
Right, exactly. But it's just, say where the rankings
are
wrong.
we saying they shouldn't recruit better? Yeah, they've got to try to recruit better, and they got to do the portal better with O-linemen.
Yes, absolutely. Miranda Veracruz de la Hoya Cardinal says, I hope I got that correctly. Ooh, that's a long name. Dinkiewicz and Missouri are going to end Pittman's head coaching career. Wow, that's
The only person that would end Sam Pittman's coaching career this year would be Sam Pittman if he decided not to retire, which there's no indication he's going to do that. I don't think he's going to be fired. But let's address this whole Missouri thing. Missouri's going to beat Arkansas. Yeah. I'm not saying they won't. Missouri, anytime a team is 6-1 in the SEC, they've got to be pretty good. But I ask you, if you believe this, that Arkansas has no chance and Dinky's going to do this or that, I ask you to go look at Missouri's schedule and look at Arkansas' schedule and ask yourself if there's a difference in who those two teams have played. And there's a common opponent. Arkansas played LSU to within 3 points at night in Death Valley, Baton Rouge. Okay? Missouri played LSU at home and lost by 10. All right, now you may say, well, yeah, but we just had a big road win over Kentucky at Kentucky. Yes, I've rarely seen a game like that. 4 or 5 minutes into that game, Kentucky was up 14-0. Missouri was in, Drinkwitz was over there looking like he didn't know what was going on. There was chaos. They weren't moving the ball. They weren't stopping anybody. It just looked like it was going to be a blowout. And then all of a sudden, what really happened was, I think Kentucky just said, you know what, let's call timeout and go over and talk to Dinky and ask him a question. Okay. And the question was, hey, would you like us to give you this game? Because we don't really want it. You know, I'm Mark Stoops. I'm in a very generous mood. I would just like to hand you this game. So if you don't mind, we'll start having stupid penalties. We'll throw a 60-yard pass and complete it down to the 15, but we'll have it come back by holding. And when you have the ball and we stop you on 4th down, we'll have one of our linebackers go up and step on your quarterback so you can get a roughing the passer or a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty so you can keep your drive going. We'll do a lot of dumb stuff like this and help you win the game. And what I was thinking to myself as I was watching this disaster for Kentucky, I was going, you know, I realize this is pretty unusual. Most teams don't do it to this extent, but when is Arkansas ever going to have a team that does that? Hey, Arkansas, you're struggling right now. Your program needs a benefit. We don't want to win today. We'll just give you this game.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
No, it was definitely a weird game for sure. But it's interesting because I think at the end of the season, depending on where Arkansas is, depending on where Missouri is, it could be a real battle between the two.
Well, it's going to be because, you know, he's coming in here, and Razorback fans don't like that much. They're still not a rival. People do not understand what a rival is. A rival is not a team that's necessarily beating you or even a team that makes you mad. Yeah. Because a lot of times you respect your rivals. I don't think Arkansas fans like Missouri because they don't like them in the league. They just like them to go to some other conference or something. They just don't like going up there. It's not like playing an SEC team. And there's a lot of things about that, but it doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge that they've had success and they've won games and they've beaten you more often than you've beaten them. None of that. It's just they don't like them.
Yeah, I think it's funny to watch Arkansas, Missouri fans go back and forth on social media because Missouri fans will always make some outlandish statement. And I love an Arkansas fan just creeps in there with the facts, right? They will just post a picture of a score or recruiting rankings or something like that. And it just shuts them down. It just shuts them down. It's so funny to me. And I think you're right. You have to give some respect to your rival, but I don't think Arkansas
I sort of
fans
view Missouri as like Texas A&M North. They have these strange traditions. You saw the video they had with
MIZ weird one,
with the students, and you're going, who dreamed that up? It makes you look strange. And then I've never figured out that whole thing of the tradition. What do they make freshmen sit on rocks?
Yes, yeah.
So you got to go out and sit on these rocks.
And then I think you choose a rock and you take it across the field at the end of like you carry a rock or something.
I don't know, but these are big rocks. I mean, you're out there sitting on boulders while the game is going on.
It's very weird. The stadium's also just very weird.
Yeah, it's down in a hole. It's down in a ravine. It's like, who does that? Hey, let's build a stadium here. Let's find a ravine and build it down in the bottom of the ravine. Let's also build a stadium next to a 5-lane expressway so you don't have a lot of traffic flow in and around it where fans can walk like they do at most stadiums, get out. I mean, Razorback Stadium has these little 2-lane streets around it. Yeah. You can get out of your car and walk and go across these streets. Now, how would you like try to walk to that place and you've got to be dodging cars?
They have like a tunnel. They have like a weird tunnel that goes to the stadium, and I'm like, wow, this is weird.
They also have a sky rail that the players, they don't do it anymore because I think they built them a locker room over by but before their practice facility and their locker room was across this highway and they had to walk across it on a bridge.
Yeah. I think
very
that's
strange.
Weird. Wow, very weird. Anyways, moving on to the next question here. It's going to be from Lake City Hawk, who asked, do you think maybe Pitman goes too far with going for it on 4th down? I understand the analytics or Samalytics thing, but should some of the intangibles be considered too?
I don't know if this is analytics, but if I were a head coach and I had a team with this offensive line that couldn't block, I had a punter like Arkansas has and a defense like Arkansas has, I'd punt it every time unless you were in the fourth quarter and you were behind and you just absolutely had to move the football.
Yeah, or you're fourth and short and you have a quarterback as big as KJ Jefferson.
Well, I wouldn't do it anyway.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't, because I would just be sitting there saying, unless we're close enough for Cam Little to boot a field goal, I'm punting the ball because your defense is good and your punter is good. Now, again, if you're already in the other team's territory, you probably are close enough for Cam Little. So to me, you're back there on your own 30 or something like that. You're going to go for it. If you fail, you're in deep trouble. And all you got to do is punt it. Your punter is an Australian rules guy that's had a couple of bad kicks this year, but mostly they've been 50, 60-yard kicks. And so you've got that, and you got a defense that can plays. All defenses play better when the other team's backed up. So I just wouldn't. I'd just go punt.
Really?
Yes, I would be punt.
Even if it's fourth and short, like the situation I was
now,
talking about this
past week. Now, it depends on where you are, but if you're at your own 30 or 40 yard, I wouldn't give them the opportunity for a short field. No way. You go with this. I guess that's analytics. I don't know.
I think so. And also, I think you're playing a little conservatively there.
I don't care if you've got KJ. Your offensive line doesn't block worth a flip. I know they've run it one time and it worked.
They did it.
Yeah, that's one time. That doesn't mean it's going to work every time.
I don't know.
I know what will work. Punt. Boink. It goes way down there, and then you got that defense. That's what I like.
All right, okay. I mean, what if he has a bad punt? You never know. You could gamble.
The chances of him having a bad punt are much less than them not blocking enough to make the first down.
You're the conservative coach. I'm the one who goes for it. I'm the one who's risky.
You get fired.
I would get fired pretty quickly. I don't know if I'd last the whole season, but hey, I'd have fun going for it on fourth down. Anyways, all right, moving on to Blake Taylor, 11-12 says, no one wants to win more than the players and coaches. I think the best thing we can do as fans is to continue to support the players and give them a home field advantage. A good home field advantage is worth 7 to 10 points in games. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, the question this week.
Vegas does too sometimes.
I agree with this. The question this week is, what's the crowd going to be like? Has this 4-game, 5-game stretch taken the starch out of fans to the point where they won't show up? Now, I asked earlier this weekend. I reached out and asked, and I'm told they are within about 2,000 tickets of a sellout. So that'd be like 76,000. So it'd be 73,000, somewhere in that range. So in terms of making money, that's what you do if you're an athletic department. You collect money from the ticket sales. So from a revenue standpoint, they're in good shape. But what the person that I was talking to did acknowledge is they don't have any idea how many are going to show up. Now, my basic feeling, based on what I said earlier about the social media being fairly positive after the game, I think people will still show up. It's homecoming, but it's an 11 o'clock game, so you kind of have a trade-off there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be 70,000, but it might be 65, and that's good. That's enough to get you pumped up for a game. I don't think it's going to be 40 or 50.
Oh, hopefully not.
So, yeah, I think coming back home, what I believe is that once this team starts playing teams that aren't as good as the ones they've just played on the road, they're playing teams at home that aren't as good as the teams they played. They're going to look a lot better than what Nick Saban said. I'm going with Nick Saban. He's smart.
Yeah, he is. I like what he said.
Whatever he says, I'll go, yeah, that's okay.
I like it, Mike. I think what made me a little nervous, and we talked about this too this weekend, was that $40 deal they were doing.
I was told that $40 deal hasn't had a lot of traction.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it's an exhibition game. And it's against a team if it was Duke, yeah.
Well, or Purdue, I mean.
Purdue. What was I thinking? Duke.
No, you're
Purdue.
good.
If it was Purdue, then I think it would have helped. But, yeah, I was told they haven't had a lot of people going, yeah, I want to take advantage of that deal.
Really?
Well,
That's
most
so
of those tickets
interesting.
were already sold.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I thought that would help. I thought they were doing that, right? Because the way it looks,
Well,
right?
maybe they were just trying to sell all of them.
Yeah.
Again, if you're a smart business person, you want to sell out.
True.
Even if not
Absolutely.
everybody shows up, you want to sell all the tickets. That's how you make money.
I mean, $40 for a weekend of Razorback basketball and football is not that bad either. So you would think more people would take advantage of that. That's really interesting.
I think in some cases is, do I come to Fayetteville if you're out of town? Do I come in an extra day early just to watch an exhibition basketball game against UA Commerce, North Texas, South Florida?
You mean UT Tyler? You know, Mike, they had a crazy season.
Whoever
Listen,
that was.
UT Tyler.
Look, I know you know all these teams because your dad plays against them, but I've
Yes.
never heard of some of these teams.
No, my dad's never played against UT Tyler, but he did tell me, he was like, Courtney, they were like really bad last year. They were 9-17.
Okay.
They ended the season on an 8-game losing streak.
Yeah. So I think
not good.
I think a lot of people just kind of looked at that deal and went, no, I'll just go to the football game.
There you go. Well, Blood Red Hog asks, did Holtz, Hatfield, Nutt, or Petrino ever switch both of their offensive and defensive coordinators in the same year? I actually don't know this, Mike.
Yeah, it would have probably taken about a half an hour of research because I would have had to gone through every press guide all along there and then compare one year to the next and see if there was a change on the staff.
Yeah.
And I don't have that kind of time.
No,
but
you
I
don't.
will say that obviously it happens most of the time when you get a new head coach. For instance, Lou Holtz in '77, he had a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator because everybody was new. And they finished number 3 in the nation. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a problem. But I do understand the nature of the question in this context because, let me state it this way. Let's say that Barry Odom had gotten an offer and decided to become a new head coach 2 years ago. And Travis Williams was hired for last year's team. Okay, so now going into this year, he would have had a year to establish that defense. You don't think that would have made a difference early in the year? I'm telling you, they would have beaten BYU. They might have even won 2 of these tough games. So the fact that both of them were replaced in 1 year, yeah, I think it made a difference. Now, so let's expand this a little farther and make some people mad in the process.
Oh, okay, I like it.
Because I don't know what's going to happen. But let's say Enos comes back for whatever reason. Do we think that the offense would work better next year with these guys having been in that system for a year? And I would say probably there might be it would depend on a lot of things. You'd have to go out and recruit a better offensive line, which at least they would have the opportunity to do that. They would know in year 2, yeah, we had an O-line problem. They didn't know that this year. So that would make it better. You're probably going to get a change in quarterback, but I think there are people that already have said, well, maybe Criswell would look better in this offense. Maybe Malachi would look better.
Yeah.
He'll be a redshirt freshman next year. So, yes, I think if Enos came back and their 2 years, ran this offense for 2 years, it would be better than it is this year. I think anytime you introduce something new, it does take a while to get it down.
And doesn't the schedule next year, it's not so much,
Oh,
it's a little bit more favorable than this
way
one?
more favorable.
Way more favorable, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. It's one of the best I've ever seen. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
Sounds
they
like
finally...
Juracek looked at this year's schedule and got on a plane and went to Birmingham and went in Sankey's office and said, you know, I used to be an athlete. I'm still in pretty good shape. I may throw you through that window if you don't change our schedule next year.
You think he said, all right, listen, I mean, your chick's pretty, he's got some broad shoulders.
I'd take him over Sankey any day of the week.
I think
He might have walked in there and scared him and said, hey, come on, it's time you gave us a break. We're tired of this basketball nonsense where we always start against the best teams on the road before we ever get back home and all that stuff.
Oh, I bet. I think I would take him in a fight, too, over Sankey.
Yeah.
I think
just to scare him. You don't have to fight.
He can be pretty intimidating, I'll say that. He's a nice guy, but I feel like he can be very intimidating. Pig's Feet says, a lot of people are claiming there's no such thing as a moral victory. I disagree. I guess they prefer losing by 30 so they can turn off the TV an hour early.
Well, again, when I looked at social media, and I looked at a lot of it, because after we finished up here, I went home and I watched that Kentucky Missouri game, but I also looked at a lot of social media. I didn't just look at Twitter. I have so many of these Facebook people where I can just go in and they're Razorback fans and I just click on what they're saying and what their friends are saying and all that. And I was surprised. It was very positive for the most part. There's a few people that are always going to be upset. But even some of those people, their own friends, were arguing with them saying, come on, you can't complain about, they had to go to Tuscaloosa. Alabama's leading the West. They're probably better than we realize they are. And this means we're better than maybe everybody thought they were. So it was mostly positive. And if they can come back and start winning, it's going to change. A lot of things are going to change. And I think if that happens at the end of the year, people are going to look back and understand just what an impact that ridiculous schedule was. Having 2 new coordinators, it all kind of worked against this team this year.
Yeah, and I think I like what Sam Pittman said after the game, and I talked about this on the radio the other day, is that Sam Pittman was like, a loss shows up as a loss on the record. It doesn't say, oh, you lost by 3 points, oh, you lost by this. It's a loss. So 2-5 can sometimes be deceiving when you look at that, because like Nick Saban said, or the Alabama fan said, going out, that's a 2-5 team. I mean, you like you made the point on the show last week. There are some people outside of Arkansas's fan base that are going, Arkansas is like a pretty good team.
Yeah, what's wrong with your fans? Do they not understand the circumstances under which this season's been played?
They want excellence, Mike. They want excellence. They want wins, and I get that. Marty Bird's Proxy wants to know, what is your handicap on the remainder of the SEC? Can anyone beat Alabama and Georgia, or do you think it's business as usual? I don't know. Florida might beat Georgia, Mike.
Georgia might lose a game, but I still think they're in the SEC championship game, and I don't think Alabama's going to lose again. I don't. I think they're better than most fans think they are. And I think, so it's business as usual, in my opinion, those 2 teams once again in the championship game. But I think it's not business as usual, at least according to what's happened lately, because I think Alabama's going to beat Georgia in the championship game.
I mean, that could happen. They're down. Brock Bowers probably is out for the season for Georgia. So, I mean, it could happen. Alabama's got some serious talent. Milroe's getting more confident each and every week. So it's definitely, I could definitely see that happening, Mike. I think you're right there. Pig Worshipper says, I absolutely love that KJ chose to be a hog, and he's given us his all these last few years. Don't we owe it to him to offer him one more season playing at his natural NFL position, tight end? Woo! Teamed up with Luke Haas, we would be known as tight end U. People say that about KJ all the time, Mike.
Well, let me ask you something. Do we know anything? Does he run pass routes? Have we seen him running pass routes?
I've never seen him do that.
Okay. Have we seen him block? Do we know that he's a blocker?
I've never. Well, he did throw off a guy.
Have we seen him catch passes? I don't know that being 6'3", 245 makes you a tight end. There are other skills that are involved in that.
They said that with Tim Tebow. You know that at Florida? They said, he would be much better as a tight end. And they actually tried to push Tim Tebow into being a tight end because they thought that was going to be his natural position. I don't think just
because you look like something doesn't make you that person.
Absolutely.
However, I'm not going to say it's not a possibility. Here's the thing I would say about KJ. He's got a decision to make at the end of the year. A lot of it will depend on what still happens, but look at his options. Okay, his options would still be to declare for the NFL draft. He could do that. Another option could be if Enos is back, he could say, I think in year 2 under Enos, I would know the system and fit into it better than I did this year. Or Enos could be gone and he go, we're going back to what we did before. I'll come back for that, and that will give me a better chance to go to the NFL. Or, I don't know, maybe he could go, hey, you owe me, let me be a tight end. I don't think that's a possibility, but I'm not going to discount it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think KJ's going to suddenly be like, all right, I'm going to be a tight end now.
You owe me, Sam Pittman. Give me another year and let me be a tight end. I don't know. I don't think that's happening. But
I don't think that's going to happen either. I think most likely out of those options is that he declares for the draft, right? And he just goes to the NFL. But we'll see what happens. That's up to KJ, I guess, Razor Alex 88 says, oh, thanks, Razor Alex 88. Fear not, Courtney. I'm still around and hanging in there. I'll still be watching each game and hoping for a win, and we'll still be in Razorback Stadium for Mississippi State and Auburn and most likely FIU. Not sure about that Missouri game, though. I just really do not like their MIZ cheer, especially in our house. My optimism for a bowl game is gone. Sorry, Mike. would be so nice to come out of the swamp with a win. I like that Razor Alex let me know his confidence is still
because you
there.
were worried that he was going to give up on being a fan.
I was worried. I mean, I thought we
Based
lost
on what
him.
he said, sent us last week.
Last week he was very pessimistic, and Razor Alex 88 is always my
Yeah,
word
you
of
don't want to
optimism.
lose positive fans. You need all the ones that are super positive. You want to keep them because you need them.
And I like that he's going to be there. He mentioned all the games, right? Mississippi State, Auburn, most likely FIU. There you go. I like that he's going to be there. I don't like that MIZ chant either. I agree with them.
Very strange.
On that one. It is very strange. So I'll let you slide on that game. Then Dr. Strangepork says, "Oh, Mike, I love that we're ending on this question. I can't wait to hear your rant on this. Not a fan of running clock in football. Hate the pitching clock in baseball. They want to shorten the game. Quit the dadgum back-to-back commercials. No one watches them anyhow. We all flip to other games until the Hog game comes back on."
Obviously I agree with that, but it's not going to change, and it's not going to change because that's where the money comes from. And sports in general, I think the NFL is this way. I know in baseball, pro sports, but the college game, at least for football, is getting this way too, which is it's one of the few businesses in this country where you can get away with saying, we don't care what the customer wants, we're going to do this. Walmart couldn't do that. People would go to Target. You can name virtually every business. You've used a paint store your whole life. They suddenly raise the prices on paint and cut back the quality. You say, I'm not going here anymore. These athletic directors all over the country, conference commissioners, people that make decisions about how much you want to, how far along you're going to go with these network people, they have the attitude about the fans and what are they going to do? Where else can they go? If you're mad, are you going to say, I'm not going to watch college football anymore? Of course not. You're still going to like it. You're just going to complain. That's their mentality. And so it gives them, to me, a false sense of what's out there, and you don't do which something that is fundamental in running a business, which is you got to take the attitude the customers are always right. And in college athletics right now, it's the customer. Who cares what the customer thinks? The reason that all of this is happening is because these schools, when they negotiate these conferences like the SEC, when they negotiate for a network like ABC or ESPN or ABC or whatever, CBS, they're going, give us more money, give us more money. And they go, okay, we'll give you more money, but we got to have more commercials. And by the way, you got to play better teams. We don't want you playing these non-conference crummy games anymore. Play a tougher schedule where you're likely to lose more games, and we're going to run 6 minutes worth of commercials where people fall asleep and wonder if they're still watching a game by the time it comes back on. I mean, I've actually flipped over in the middle of one of these things and I'm going, is this game on? Because it just goes on and on and on.
Sometimes it feels like they're all lining up perfectly. I'll flip back and forth, and don't you get commercial after commercial after commercial?
And I'm like, what is this?
What is this?
Now, here's what I said this maybe a month ago, and a lot of people got mad. But where we're heading, if you have this attitude of, and I was told a story today. Don't know how accurate it is, but I'm going to put it out there.
Oh, okay.
It's not. I haven't confirmed it.
Okay.
But I was told a story today that some of the boosters it's being discussed that they want to do a $200 million renovation at Walton Arena. And this particular booster was saying, I would rather give my money to NIL to get better players. I don't need a fancier arena. Now, I don't know if it'll really cost $200 million, but we know they unveiled a concept, and it was going to cost something for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And it was this idea that you're going to create new club-level seating under the skyboxes, and you're going to take out maybe 2,000 seats, and you're going to pay a lot of money to create a fancy area where a lot of people will come in and pay money. Okay, that's going on everywhere. I'm not blaming Hunter Yurachek. He's just a realist. It's happening everywhere. Mm-hmm. So if this attitude continues, which is, hey, we got to have a new facility. This thing's 10 years old. We got to have a new one. Every time you turn around, we got to have a new one. Got to have a new football operations center. Got a new basketball. Got to have a new the football stadium's old. We got to fix it up. If this continues, and if the players NIL money, we got to have NIL money. Got to pay your coaches more. Oh, if you got to pay this big buyout, and then in order to get a coach, you have to pay him a lot of money and give him a big buyout. So if all of that stuff continues, what's going to happen? This isn't going to change. conferences are going to go, oh, now our 9-year contract with ABC is up. Now we want way more money. So we will eventually end up with a situation where the networks are telling you what to do. They're already pretty much doing it anyway.
They're already doing that,
and you can only run so many commercials. So the next step is to say, you know what, we're going to get rid of about half the teams in Division I, and let's just have an NFL-type 32-team deal. And so you're going to eliminate a bunch of teams. They're just out on their own, do whatever they want. You figure it out. What's happening with the Pac-12?
Right.
A bunch of those Pac-12 teams are just going, what do we do?
Or you're creating more opportunities to sell, right? Whereas somebody came up with a concept where they could sell the jerseys, right? Where Arkansas, we're going to sell all your jerseys. So across the front, you're like soccer, basically,
right,
where you have a big
ads,
sponsor across the thing. Because soccer, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were like, I wish football was like soccer. And I go, what do you mean? They were like the soccer broadcast, because they don't have commercials. You just watch the soccer game because the time keeps running. They just keep going. So you don't have commercials. So what do? They embed commercials throughout the broadcast where they have, different things. And I don't necessarily, I'm like, I'd watch that. I'd watch it. Football just...
No, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like for a Razorback uniform to have the big ad on the front of it. But certainly this could happen. But the main thing I'm worried about is creating this super-duper conference with elite snobby teams. We're better, and the rest of people can go over and just do whatever you want to do. Because let me tell you what I think is going to happen when they do that, because I know the American public. A bunch of them are going to go, you know what, to hell with you. I'm going to do what I've always done. I've always been a Washington State fan, or whoever's getting left out. I'm going to continue to watch them in whatever conference division they create. Yeah. I'll watch a lower division that doesn't have a bunch of people with gigantic NIL money. I'm going to watch it where they don't, it's not on TV. Maybe it's a streaming thing where you don't have as many ads. And I'll watch it because it's fun.
Yeah.
The other night, was it last night? Well, yes, it was last night, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm at home.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we were talking about that.
And I've got an option to watch the first game of the American League Championship Series or Arkansas volleyball.
And I know which one you picked.
And I watched Arkansas volleyball.
Yes,
and here's why. They're not getting NIL money. I love the way they hustle. They were in the crummiest facility on campus. Barnhill is the oldest, dungy-looking thing. It's not terrible, but it hasn't changed a lot.
It's not a lot of character.
It hasn't changed a lot since 75 or 76, 77. It's the oldest facility on campus, but they're not complaining about that. They don't have a fancy locker room. They're just out there winning, and they're good. And you're watching that and you're going, that's why I like college sports. I don't like players that got to have NIL deals and get a brand new pickup and we got to build you a brand new locker room that's got a swimming pool in it or whatever they think they want that's the newest thing. This is not what people tune in to watch sports for, as opposed to professional sports. I've spent most of my career covering college sports. I prefer it over professional sports. I covered it for a year in Dallas. I didn't like it. I love this. I love the fact that athletes still, they still play for the love of the game, but that's starting to go away. It is. It's not like what it was. I remember Dan Hampton, a phone conversation I had with him about 2 years ago, and he talked about what it was like when he was on scholarship and how on Sunday night, they were just out of luck. They didn't have any food in the athletic dorm. They shut it down. He said, we just had fans that would feed us. He said, we got by okay. We didn't have a lot of fancy stuff in there. We did it because we wanted to play. And that's just going away.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, when I retire, I'm not watching that stuff. If they go to their super duper division with the endless commercials and the ads on the front of the jerseys and, all this stuff that we're headed to, paying gajillion dollars to everybody on NIL, you got a player sitting there being average just like it's pro football? Nah. I watch women's volleyball.
Yes. You'll watch. Hey, you got to like watching women's volleyball right now because there is less ads. I know I don't see a lot of ads when I watch them on SEC Network and things like that. And two, they're winning. Why would you not watch them?
They're good.
They're good. I mean, when they celebrate after a set, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's awesome.
I
Every
like
point.
it because they get mad about certain things. Like last night, they were up 2 sets and they could have clinched it in the third set, but they lost pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, this could be bad. They came back and just crunched them.
They were so mad.
They were
so
mad, and they just totally destroyed them. And they were up by 11 or 12 points there at the end.
Yeah.
That's fun to watch.
I know, it's great. Hey, definitely that's a plug for the Arkansas volleyball team.
And
Go
soccer,
watch them.
and
soccer
softball.
and softball.
And I still like the baseball hogs. They haven't been taken over yet. And I think basketball is okay. It's and it's not Arkansas. It's just the whole sport of college football. It's just getting out of control.
It really is. You're right. I think they need to lasso it in a little bit.
How about the schools get together and say, let's rein this back a little bit. We don't have to keep asking college these networks for more and more money. Let's tune it. Let's say, okay, each school gets $45 million a year. We're not going to ask for a new contract in X years to get 60 or 70. Yeah. We're going to live with what we got.
Yeah, but they're all greedy. They're all about the money, Mike, and that's what we always talk about on this show. But that's going to do it for another edition of Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.